Thank you, President Sprague. Tonight, we have the pleasure of hearing from our Special Education and Pupil Personnel Executive Director, Andre Jandreau, as he's going to update us on what is going on in the world of special ed and pupil personnel. So I am going to turn this over to Mr. Jandreau at this time.
Great, thank you very much, and I'm excited to get a chance to speak to you and brag a little bit about the team, but also inform you a little bit about Special Education Pupil Personnel Department. It is a large department. I got a lot to talk about, but I do think it is significant first to talk about the fact that one of the things we did in the last few years is to be sure that we do some intentional things to have teamwork within the instructional department, and that we didn't operate in any silos, and that we were all together within that instructional department. And we've done a fantastic job. Mr. Pate, Mrs. Blevins, and Mr. Holbrook's intention to be sure that we're all one department has gone a long way. And really, you're going to find tonight that it's the expectation of the Ohio Department of Education. So you're going to hear and understand there's a lot of complexities to this department, from school psychologists who lead a team to evaluate and discover there may be a disability, to an intervention specialist who develops an individual education plan or an IEP as a team to support specially designed instruction, to related service providers such as speech and language pathologists, to occupational therapists who provide therapy based upon the disabilities so that the student ultimately has the same access to learning and the school experience. There's also the special education supervisors or the administrators who ensure we're following state and federal guidelines to the identified students. And then there's a guidance counselor or the student family support specialist who ensure 504 accommodation plans under the Americans with Disabilities Act are followed. And of course, there's that accountability, the special education profile, which is our report card in some sense, and is all part of our work. You'll learn a little more about this in the next 20 minutes, and we'll talk about where that team concept is and where the students are always at the forefront. So I want to make sure that we talk about our purpose. I think it's important as the director to be sure that we're putting this in front of us and to ask our teams to put this in front of us. And our purpose is really to continually craft plans to improve learning experiences and outcomes for students with disabilities. Another way to put it is our teams put plans in place that are reasonably calculated to show growth and access. We operate under and have to follow two federal laws: the Individuals with Disabilities Act, IDEA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. So the IDEA started and was drafted in 1974 and had several reauthorizations throughout, and ultimately up to 2015 under Every Student Succeeds Act. And I want to read to you, and it helps us remind us of what our purpose is. But part of the law says this: disability is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes the rights of individuals to participate in or contribute to society. Improving educational results for students with disabilities or children with disabilities is an essential element of our national policy of ensuring equality of opportunity, full participation, and independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. So that drives our work. That is what our purpose is. And I want to let you know that we have a great team that do it with great care and concern. And I want to go into a little more detail of what that looks like. One of the toughest things that we have to do is in this department is we have to live on two kind of different sides of things. We have to be sure that we have this compliance side. We have these IEPs, we have state and federal laws and regulations. We work with the Office of Exceptional Children from the Ohio Department of Education and the Office of Civil Rights. And we also have, and you'll learn more about this, a strategic plan from the Ohio Department of Education. It's called Each Child Means Each Child. And then there's the instructional side. It is all about the instruction, right? It's about what we do to promote inclusive practices. It's about our continuum of services and ensuring that we're in the right place for those students and that they're accessing the appropriate services. It's about quality therapy, and it's about that specially designed instruction. So I do want to, express that sometimes those are competing values, aren't they? Oh, I need to have this IEP. It's got to be, we got to follow this document, and that's true. But we also have to have time in the classroom where we're individualizing instruction, and we're getting this needs of our students met. So it is part of our work, and it's heavy work, right? I want to talk to you a little bit about Each Child Means Each Child, and I want to read to you about this most recent plan that the Office of Exceptional Children has come up with. But in the plan, it says, Ohio is moving ambitiously towards an educational model driven by inclusive leadership, high-quality instruction, and intentional post-secondary transition planning. The attainment of this work will require a collective effort by educators, parents, and community. The proactive approach is expected to improve achievement and learning outcomes for Ohio's students with disabilities. So this plan has different components to it. And the Department of Education has operating standards and the Office of Civil Rights, and we're following all those within that plan. So there are different areas of focus, and that we have developed our own areas of focus based upon Each Child Means Each Child. So that's our plan, and those are the things that we continue to work within. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the people. How do we do this, and who is it? And I want to tell you that it's a fantastic team, and this just expresses here the somewhat of the people personnel organizational chart. So let's meet the team just a bit. There is Sean Riley, Mr. Riley, who is a special education supervisor, Mrs. G, who is a special education supervisor, and then Ms. Peters, who also is a special education supervisor. And you see the buildings that they're responsible for. And then there's Ms. Venegas, who is also a special education supervisor. We have 16 leads and department heads who help to support this work. We have 114 intervention specialists, 125 educational aides. And we also work in tandem, and the decision to have Dr. Conrad and Mrs. Sorrentino support the People Personnel Department and the related services has been a great decision, and it's going fantastic. We also have 20 student family support specialists and guidance counselors who take care of 504s. We have 71 occupational therapists, PTs, and OTs, and school psychologists and nurses. That's a big team, but you know what? That's not the only part of the team. We work in tandem with principals. We work in tandem with assistant principals, chief executive officers, and we provide services and instructional design. It's about the instructional design for each of us learning together as we devise plans based upon every child's needs. So let's look at the kids, and let's look at those numbers. This is a view of our students and some of our numbers, but I also want to show you and express to you some of the percentages according to the 2020-2021 special education profile. And just to do a comparison with a percentage of those students in Ohio, in all of Ohio, we have 17% of our students are considered students with a disability. In Ohio, there's 15%. That average is 15%. So the numbers that you'll see and you'll find here are somewhat consistent, but I thought we would, before we would move forward, is to express what are the 14 disability categories in the state of Ohio. There's autism, intellectual disability, deaf-blindness, emotional disturbance, deafness, multiple disabilities, other health impairment, specific learning disabilities, visual impairment, speech and language, orthopedic impairment, and traumatic brain injury. Those are the 14 disability categories in Ohio. So let me give you just some quick percentages on that. The specific learning disabilities, there's 33% of those 17% in our district, 33% are specific learning disabilities. The state average is 37%. Autism, our average is 7.5%, where the state is 9.49%. Multiple disabilities is 3.6, where the state is 4.32. Emotional disturbance, 4.6, where the state is 6.2. And speech and language pathology or therapy, 24%, where the state is 12%. So that's just a review of our percentages in that special education profile. You can get to that special education profile by going to the Ohio Department of Education and by typing in special education profile. But here are our numbers according, also connected to the providers. So as I said, we have 114 intervention specialists, we have 125 educational aides, and we have 1,757 students with a disability on an IEP. Students who fall under a 504 accommodation plan, we have 461 students. Those who fall under and need speech services, we have 24 therapists serving 1,000 students. Visually impaired, we have one provider serving 22 students. Audiologist, we have one provider serving 62 students. And hearing impaired, we have one provider serving 27. And our physical therapist, we have 4 serving 149 students. And our occupational therapist, we have 14 serving 457. So in those operating standards, there's some limits by how you can provide and be sure that your providers aren't providing to too many students. And then the school psychologists and the nurses. I could talk for 20 minutes about what our school psychologists and our nurses do, but just in this particular year, there's 315 students that'll have a review ETR. There's a lot of initials that are gonna happen, and there's a lot of other things that those school psychologists do to support the multi-tiered systems of support. But then there's the nurses who are doing so many things, but they see an average of, and this is a 3-year average of 45,000 to 47,000 students visit their office per year. We're doing some heavy work, we're doing some great work, and I thought that it was important for you to see that. We're not doing this work alone. We do partner with other services, and you all approve those, right? And you all approve those contracts. But I want you to know that we're making good use of those partnerships, and I wanted to just quickly talk about those partners. The Butler County Educational Service Center, they provide therapeutic day school, audiology services, hearing impaired services, speech and OT and PT, orientation and mobility services for the visually impaired, and some nursing services for our one-on-one students who need a one-on-one nurse. Warren County Educational Service Center promote and support our social communication classrooms, mental health and social emotional services, along with access to paraprofessionals and interpreter services. St. Al's or Cambridge Educational Services, special education services under IDEA, and also social emotional supports, as well as mental health services and access to medical and psychiatric care and management. Hamilton County Educational Service Center, we access our assistive technology consortia, and they provide devices and services that include consulting as well. We also work with the Children's Hospital and the Kelly O'Leary Center. We partner with consultants from the O'Leary Center, and particularly in professional development and one-on-one consulting. So for our students with autism, we will do some professional development. We had a recent professional development where all of our staff was so excited about what they learned, and they want her to come back. And they also appreciate the idea that they're consulting with the teams on some very tough and particular situations for how we're gonna ensure growth in our students. We also are a member and work with the Regional Autism Advisory Council. This group meets monthly and supports districts with resources for both parents and school personnel, and coordination of agencies and support for parents who can access those agencies for help and support at home. Did you know that children who are in foster care, if we have a child who may have been put in foster care while they are in this district, may be in another district at the time that they were living here, and if they were pulled from this district, we are responsible for those students, and in some sense working with that other district that they may be living there and with their foster parents. And so we have to give oversight, and we have to work with those teams. There's about 143 of those students who are students with disabilities in foster care. We also have to do some work with the JPSN and the autism scholarships. We have some responsibility for what we need to do ETRs and IEPs with those. Primary Health Solutions is another partner, and I'm telling you, it's a fantastic opportunity for us to be able to access medical care for our students, and it's been very successful. It takes a lot of work from the nurses and a lot of organization and travel time, and they do a fantastic job with that for our students to be able to access that. MindPeace helps us with accessing providers, mental health providers, upon the parents' permission, and they work in collaboration with our teams in the schools to meet the needs of our students who have mental health needs. I want to talk just a bit about our related service providers. You might be saying, what do related service providers do? What does an occupational therapist do? So ultimately, they eliminate or minimize barriers to ensure equity and access. So I want to take a look. It's about 2 minutes. I think it's a good opportunity, and we also have one of our members of our team.
It can be
who put this
overwhelming when you
together.
sit back and look at the world around us thinking, how can we do anything that will really help? Finding a way that you can in your career is how. For me, it's being Heidi Shaw's school nurse.
For students with hearing and listening needs, having access to an educational audiologist can determine how successful they may be throughout their educational career. My goal is and will continue to be to allow students with hearing and listening needs the same access to instruction as their typical hearing peers.
Working in the schools, I can recall treating a student with a genetic disorder that could not sit up without physical assistance, let alone walk, when she began services as a preschooler. By the time I left the district, she was in 3rd grade and walking without physical assistance or an assist device with her therapy dog.
As a school psychologist, I'm able to apply my understanding of behavioral principles, problem-solving skills, and a passion for helping others to find solutions for students struggling in the school environment.
As an SLP in the schools, I've been given the wonderful opportunity to work with children across the age span to address a vast array of communication needs. The flexibility and novelty in this field is what stimulates my continuous passion for what I do.
The OT profession offers many diverse opportunities to work with people and help them help themselves across their lifespan.
Within one day, I can find myself encouraging communication from working with young babies in the home to supporting preschool-age children in the classroom.
Being told by students that they love you and the excitement they have when they are working with you and the request to see you again following week. This makes me know that I am in the right place, that I'm doing the right thing, and that I'm making a difference in the life of a child.
I am helping students maximize their physical potential, social potential, functional potential, and educational potential. I truly enjoy being an occupational therapist. It is a great and rewarding job.
I love that I have the opportunity to have a career I feel truly makes a difference by intervening with children of all ages.
I'm lucky in my school district to be surrounded by people that want to help. I feel like I'm a part of a team that gets it. We see the bigger picture, and we are working together to help make our school community a better place for our students, our staff, and our families.
I thought that was helpful for you to be able to understand, and that was put together by the Ohio Department of Education and was supported by some of our staff members too. So we do have great relationships with our Ohio Department of Education. Mr. Riley's part of SAPEC, which is a team that helps to devise the operating standards. Mr. Paramore was president of the School Psychology Association, so I'm proud of that, and I want us to continue to be a part of that and have great relationships. Want to quickly go through a couple more slides before I finish, but this is some shout outs here. We did talk in our last, one of our most recent meetings about the Ohio annual rating for the special ed rating and the special ed profile, and we hit the highest rating at meets requirements there. We also had a recent academic growth and report card success. Our recent value-added report came out, and our value-added report shows significant growth across the district, but also for our students with disabilities as well. We have made gains in the progress and in those reports. In the last report card that was put out with this particular grade, 2019, the report card had our students with disabilities grade was a C, and it went up 2 grades. And looking back before that, in the last 5 years, it was an F. So we're moving forward. We're growing students. I also want to just talk about the fact that we've streamlined our management systems. If you can imagine, we have a lot of IEPs, right, with our hard documents, and we put them and have them in our management system, but they need to integrate so that teachers can access them on their caseload and on their teacher list. Now we've integrated that. So from a business side, that's good. We have a firm way to be able to have teachers be able to access those plans that they've got to implement. We also have stayed out of corrective action plans. When the special ed profile comes out, if we didn't hit a mark, we would have a corrective action plan. And for the last 4 years, we have had stayed out of that. It's not going to be forever. We will have some times we'll have to make some corrections. But I talked a little bit about the highlights of the areas of focus. These are the 3 areas of focus. And equity and accessibility, internal monitoring, and multi-tiered systems of support. That's our plan to work and put systems in place for students to be captured if they're having troubles, and even for all students, for gifted students. The TBTs are the teacher-based teams, and they solve those problems, and that's not always easy. But that is something that I feel that we've had some success with, and we definitely are moving forward as part of our areas of focus. There's 2 other highlights that I want to shout out, and one of the things that the Each Child Means Each Child has stated is that we need to put plans in place for students to be ready to graduate. Put intentional plans for students to be prepared for graduation. We're doing this with the Big Blue Academy and access to the Miami School. We're increasing access, we're increasing graduation opportunities, and we're improving instructional design within that smaller group and in that smaller setting that's helping to support those kids and the kids that need support towards graduation. We also have our Transition to Graduation Notebook. In Section 5 of our IEP, we are required to be sure that we have plans in place for employability, right? And so we have a collection of transition activities that start in 7th grade and that follows those students, and we have assessments that are informed to be able to develop those activities and have them be prepared. Those are some shout outs, and I want to be sure that we also express that. I'm being brave in these next couple of slides by talking about these value-added reports, but I just want to give a shout out to a couple of these. Value-added reports helps educators measure the impact schools and staff have on students. academic progress from year to year. So if you notice, and if you can imagine that line right there in the middle, that's the expected growth. That's what we would expect a student to grow. And the bars are a group of students. And if the bar's above that line, we've grown those groups of students that much. So I have two reports that I want to show you. And for the fourth grade English Language Arts in our 2021 results, Group 1, which is a group of 80 students, grew 2.0 above that line. Group 2 grew 0.9 above that line, and Group 3 grew 9.9. Group 2 had 20 students in it, and Group 3 had 9 students. So for our fifth grade mathematics, we had Group 1, who had 56 students in that group, grew plus 4.9. And for Group 2, it was grew 24 students, grew 3.0. And for our Group 3 there, that was 5 students who grew 5.7. This is the last slide on value added. And so on our value added reports, the 7th grade English Language Arts, that Group 1 there had 60 students in it and grew 2.0. And Group 2 had grown 3.7, and there was 19 students in there. And in our 7th grade math, in Group 1, there was a large group of 58, but growth was 10.5 above that line, and there was 20 students in Group 2 who grew 10.1. So we take time to analyze data and meet the needs of every child and every student. And I do want you to know and want to report to you that the work is hard, it's complex. It's certainly a team approach. We are all one team. Mr. Payton, Mrs. Blevins can get us all to wear an ugly sweater and go pass out small gifts to every staff member. We are a team. But I laugh about that. That's the kind of thing that relationships matter. And when we are working through tough things, because sometimes our team meetings can be really tough, and we care about each other, we care about our kids, and we're putting kids at the forefront. You're part of that team. You help to support that team by providing resources for us, and we appreciate it. And I want you to know that I hold the team accountable to those resources, and we work very hard to be sure that we do it all the time with those strong relationships for kids and families, but with great care and concern and love. And yes, I'm going to say it, those staff members love those kids, all of our kids. So thank you for your support and your time today.
Thank you, Andre. I realize the challenges that come with not only your position, but what all the teachers in special ed are going through on a daily basis. And when you say they love the students, I've seen that many times with our teachers and the love and the care that they demonstrate for those kids. And when I see the value-added things, that's teachers making a difference in those students, and that's so important. I appreciate the work that you're doing with those kids, because it's not an easy job, and it's got a lot of wills. And I don't remember half this stuff, but all the initials, you could have a whole glossary of that, but all that has to go into those programs from the day they're evaluated to the day they graduate. It's amazing what our teachers are able to do with those kids. Day in and day out. So I appreciate that. And I also want to say we're sorry we took so long in our executive meeting. We hit a lot of things. So we know we put you under a little bit of a pressure. It's Mrs. Baker's fault. But anyway, no, I appreciate all the hard work that you and your teachers and your staff put in. It's amazing. It's simply amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. John Droe probably oversees one of the most complex departments in the district, and it is a challenging job just with compliance alone, let alone with the management of people. And once again, it comes back to this, services to kids. And I think that he has brought in that approach where we're going to work collaboratively, we're going to work together, and we're going to service our kids. And I think that that is the philosophy that you're starting to see. And some of the results that we are getting is because of that philosophy. So I want to thank publicly Mr. Jandreau and his entire staff, our teaching staff, our EAs, everybody involved that work on a daily basis with our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we want to go straight into the regular meeting? That's okay? Then we're going to move into our regular session. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Board members, you've received a copy of our minutes from the last meeting. I'd like a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Hancock.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Mr. Isgro.
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews.
Yes.
Mr. Sprague.
Yes. I don't see a member of City Council here. Mr. Holbrook. Or am I doing this part? You got it.
We've got a couple things under Superintendent's comments this evening. The first, I would like to personally congratulate Baden High School as our educational partner. You know, they made it to the state finals in football this year. That's a tremendous accomplishment. Coming from someone that has a coaching background, it's tough when you are not successful in the state finals, but they're going to look back on that memory, and getting that far is a tremendous accomplishment. You know, I know Coach Yordi. I have worked with him personally. It's a class act, and I want to personally and publicly congratulate them on a very, very successful season.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, it was great.
Second piece that I want to talk about a little bit is that last night, you know, late in the evening, we were made aware of a social media posting that posed a potential threat to this district. We worked continuously through the night and even in the early mornings with the Hamilton Police Department, and are continuing to work towards that. I know that there are some parents that were concerned about the lateness of some of our communication, but understand that we are working closely with the police department. That information that we share certainly has to be vetted through them as to not compromise a bigger investigation. And as information becomes available, we get that out there as soon as we can. We're fortunate in the fact that the social media post from last evening was deemed not to be credible, and I just spoke a couple hours ago with the chief of police on that. But obviously this is a trend throughout the area right now. We are not the only school district that is dealing with some of these challenges, and we have a priority. Our priority is the safety of our staff and students. That is our priority. And I appreciate parents reaching out and giving us information. I appreciate their patience with us as we've gone through and will continue to go through this. And you know, I felt it's important to communicate that to our community, and the fact that, you know, there couldn't be anything more important to me than kids walking into the school building safe. And we will not make a decision, and if we have to err on any decision, it's going to be an error on the side of safety. But, you know, we're fortunate to have a relationship with the Hamilton Police Department that's probably second to none as far as school districts, and we continue to work with them, and we'll work with them this evening as more and more things continue to pop up in the region. It isn't just Hamilton. There's other districts that have been identified in this, and you know, obviously we are not experts in the investigation of these things, but the Hamilton Police Department, they are the experts.
On behalf of the board, I know that the board members would support me on this one, is that we appreciate how fast the district reacted, how fast you and your team reacted last night. I know you didn't get a lot of sleep last night because of this, and but it's a very important thing that we have to make sure the kids are safe. And the way the police department jumped in and helped out immediately, they're to be commended for that too.
Yeah, we had at least one individual that was up until 1 o'clock in the morning with a detective sitting in their front living room. And Mr. Wright, I know you probably didn't get much sleep either,
Yeah.
but I mean, we're all dedicated to making sure this is a safe environment for kids to come into. And so if we have to do that again tonight, we will. But we will
Appreciate that.
continue to do our due diligence on that.
Mike, I'd also like to thank you for the communication that you all have to us on those circumstances, you know. It was late last night, but those are things that we need to be aware of, so thank you for that.
Yeah, and you know, unfortunately with this situation, some of the things that transpired from a time standpoint were either late in the night or right after the arrival of students in the morning, and so it was a difficult communication piece on that. You know, as soon as we get that and we feel comfortable making the statement, we will, but we're not going to make a statement until we're confident in what we are saying is accurate information, and that's where the police department really is an assistance with us.
Thank you, sir. Board members, you've been going on. We have the final reading and recommendation for public participation, board policy 0169.01, and the district calendars. There's no vote on this, right, Mike?
No, there is
No
vote.
vote.
There is vote.
There is a vote.
Both of these are final reads. The first
Okay.
read was at the last board
Yep.
meeting, so we are recommending both policies for approval this evening.
Okay, I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Davidson. Mr. Hancock?
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Israel?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Do we have any members of public participation?
We have,
Yeah, I think you have a second vote on the
You wanna do that
calendars as well. I think those need to be done in two
Done
separate
separately?
votes, yes.
Okay. I take a motion for approval of the district calendars.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Hancock?
Mr. Israel?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Okay. Public participation, Mr. Bowman? Just a reminder to state your name and address, please. Thank you.
Gary Bowman, 159 Progress Avenue. 3 minutes isn't nearly enough time, so would it be possible that I can meet with you folks on the record? Not tonight, but can I call your office and meet with you people? Because this just isn't enough time.
I think so.
So
Maybe not
I'll
with
call
board
tomorrow and we can get together and, because there's a lot of concerns that we never hear about. And what,
That's up to Mr. Holbrook.
up to Mr.
Call my office tomorrow, we'll set up.
I will. Yeah, this is all civil. It just, we need to be heard also. You know, not all of us are, some of us are blue collar workers. You know, you guys are doing wonderful things with the university, but a lot of us have no intention to seeking out a degree in any university.
I would be more than glad to talk to you about the continuum of services we have from career tech education to workforce development, as well as the university. We've highlighted some of the university things. but
And I'd
we've
like
got
to
other
share
things
my
as well.
experience, and if we
Sure.
could bring some of that back, we
But,
can make a
if
huge
you would
change.
If you would call my office tomorrow morning, we'd absolutely set up a time to meet.
I'll do that. I'll start whenever you're ready.
Good, you're going.
Well, obviously, all of us parents are pretty upset, and it started with the mask thing. I believe that you had good intentions. It just didn't come out that way. And it frightens us. As a parent, you know, we love our children, and we trust that when we send our children to school, that you personally are going to be sure that they're protected physically, mentally, and emotionally. And when we raise our children and we teach them certain things, and you go against that without talking to us first, you know, that it really concerns us. What we hear is you don't hear us. A lot of parents get up here and they vent and they go on, and it just feels like it just falls on deaf ears because nothing's changed. And that's why I think we should just maybe just one at a time, or all of us should get together and not punch and yell and holler, but you guys have an agenda, but we need to be part of that agenda. You need to hear us and our concerns where we want to, where we hear our children where they want to go. They don't necessarily want to go where you would like to see them to go. They have their own dreams. Some of them want to be carpenters, welders, engineers, and these universities aren't going to give them what they want. We want to give our children what they want. They got to have the ability, they got to have skills to make it in this world. And this world is changing, and it's changing quickly. So we would like it, we'd greatly appreciate it if all of you would start working with all of us parents. We're not going to stand up here and threaten to recall you. Not yet.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Board members, you have, if I can pull it up real fast, you have the consent agenda in front of you. I'd like to have a motion for acceptance of the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion, sir.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Any questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Hancock?
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Mr. President, tonight we have a Lane Library Public Board of Trustee appointment. We received one application for that this year. Those are 7-year terms. You end up doing that once every year because statutorily the Board of Education is required to provide that service. It's the same thing. It happens if they have to do a tax levy of some type, it has to run through the district because you're the governmental agency that has the oversight on that. So, it's an annual process. Again, they were 7-year terms, one rolls off every year. And this year, someone we know, Joni Kopus, has applied, and we would recommend that she be appointed to that 7-year term. We have donations, which have letters of appreciation. And then the financial reports for November have been provided to you.
Mm-hmm.
And we had estimated $41,558,000.
Which form are you on, Bob?
I'm on the cash flow
Okay, thank you.
report, cash flow analysis. The one, oh, well.
I cast it.
Well, I'll just cast it again then.
Somebody take it away from me.
Who stole my cast?
I think Mr. Wright did.
Well, sure. Well, we'll do this old school then. On the estimate of revenues through the month of November, which is the 5th month of the fiscal year, $41.5 million. We've received $41.6 million, $61,722 more than anticipated. So they're running as planned at this point. Again, I'll always have you look back, especially right now with everything that's going on with the state foundation formula and the budget. Look at the previous couple of years because that's really indicative of the way things are going. And so last year at this time we had $43.2 million and $44.3 million the year before that. And that's not necessarily a problem. Keep in mind that this new foundation formula does not have the revenue associated with certain students that used to be in the district counted on that formula. So they took away certain dollars associated with scholarships that they had said were there. You will also see even more reductions on that on the lower side of the equation. So so the numbers are certainly different from what we've anticipated in the past. We have not actually seen the new formula yet. Hopefully in the next month. It's the latest I've seen it come out. which always makes a treasurer very comfortable putting out a financial forecast when you don't know what the funding formula is. But we've done that, and off and running we are. Expenditures at $40.4 million, we've spent about that, $66,000 less than anticipated at this point. So nothing really of a major surprise right now. We're running about $131,000 better than planned, or lower than planned, I should say, on purchase services. And it'd be nice if that would continue. But again, here's an area where you continue to look at what happened last year and 2 years ago. 40.4 million versus 41.3 million versus 42.1 million. Some of that's going to be because you're spending ESSER dollars. And so there's some general fund expenses that are in there from previous years. But again, when you get down to purchase services, it's all those scholarships that were paid, be it Ed Choice, charter schools were the big one. Those numbers total about $4 or $5 million. So that really starts bringing those numbers down over a fiscal year. But keep in mind, they took some revenue away from you up top to account for that. So we'll watch and continue to see how it goes, but things running as planned for the time being.
Is that it?
That's the excitement for right now.
That's all I can handle. That's all I can handle right now. So. All right. I'd like a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Second.
Mr. Hancock?
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Isgaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
I believe that's all the business we have. Our next meeting will be on January 13th, executive work session from 4:30 to 6:30, and then the 6:30 meeting is only an organizational meeting. There won't be any votes or public participation at that time at that meeting. It's only organizational. Being that there's no other business in front of the board, I have asked for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you.